Awesome, thank you. Welcome everyone to ACDE number 203. Bunch of things on the agenda today, lots of Pectra spec stuff, and then discussions around the gas limit on Holsky, RPC standardization, node requirements, and EIP editing. To start, I believe Devnet 5 has just gone live. Perry, do you want to give us a quick update on the Devnet?
Yes. So yeah, Devnet 5 went live like half an hour ago or something. You can find all the tooling links here. Electra activates at epoch 4, and since then we do see some issues with gas estimation, I think, on Ericon, but we'll collect some logs and post it in there. I'll share the link of what images I'm using, but essentially it's mostly just an updated version of what's been on the interop channel. And thank you to all the client teams for sprinting and merging stuff in so that we can get this.
Thanks. And yeah, did Electra activate right before the call? Is that what she did?
Yeah, like 3 minutes before the call.
Nice. Great. Any team want to share anything else on the DevNet? Okay. If not, then we can discuss all of the potential spec changes, finalizations for Pectra, and see what where we go from there. I'll go in order from the agenda, but the first one, there was a PR from Powell on EIP 7623 about the gas refunds. I see it's been merged already, but was there anything that people wanted to discuss about this? I don't know if Powell's on the call.
Yes. Yeah, I think this issue has been solved to the point that tests were fixed and all of that. So the issue was, if I remember correctly, like the final tuning to the transaction gas cost when you need to apply this minimum gas cost that was computed before. I mean, it wasn't clear by the spec that it's supposed to be done. This step should be done after refunds are applied or before the refunds are applied. And I think we agreed that it makes much more sense to apply this cap after the refunds, but actually the tests and the reference implementation did the other way. So that has been corrected in EOS and then in the execution spec tests, and I think everyone is on the same page. So yeah, consider that solved.
Thank you. Anything else on this issue? And I assume this PR was not included in DevNet 5, is that correct?
Yeah, it hasn't been included yet.
Okay, got it.
Wait, it is. It's on the 1.2 release of IST. So
okay,
if they're passing the test, then it should be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then it has been. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying, Mira. Okay, then the next one was about EIP 7840. Marek had a PR updating the base fee update fraction. Marek, are you on the call?
Yes. Okay, so I can give quick context. So we introduced blob parameters in the EL configuration to specify the blob target and the max blob value per fork. However, in meantime, we introduced another EIP for blob increase, EIP 7691, which modified the blob fraction constant in the Pectra fork. So this created an inconsistent situation where some blob parameters were hard-coded while others were in the configuration. So it was a little bit messy. And this PR resolves that by moving the blob fraction into the EL configuration alongside the other parameters, so target and max. And Actually, I think we have support for this PR from all EL client teams and testing team as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, this seems like there's support on the PR directly. Anyone thinks we should not do this? Okay. If not, then I think we should go ahead and merge the PR. And once we're through the specs discussions, we can decide whether we think we need another DevNet to test this or and other changes, or if we may want to move straight to testnets. But we should move forward with the PR 7840. And I guess somewhat relatedly, oh, sorry, Joachim said we should clarify the PR a bit more before merging, and that there was a comment on it. Yeah, do you want to maybe expand on your comment, Joachim?
Yes, sorry. Like there was a comment also by Marek about the defaults, and I think we should clarify that. But that was just a comment which I got on Discord, so we will check after ACDE.
Okay, so let's maybe aim to have this merge before Monday's testing call, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that will work. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Anything else on this PR? Okay. If not, next up, Alex brought up the Blob base fee at fork boundaries. I believe there was a testing issue. Yeah, that got triggered here. I don't know if Alex, you want to give it a bit more context and suggest how we should update EIP 7691 to make this clearer.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, this came from an issue during testing, and my understanding is that essentially it's a question of like when do we make the changes as we go to change the blob count. The reason this is sort of tricky is because the way the base fee function update, like the function we use to update the base fee, the way it works is it uses the parent header, I believe. And so then the question is like at the fork boundary, do you use the header, which is like a bit weird because it's like new logic at the fork, but you're going back to the previous fork, or do you just want to go ahead at the fork boundary with the new fork rules? And I think that was the issue. There was a clarification. The reason I brought this up is because there was a clarification to 7742 around the same behavior, and I think this is the analogous behavior for 7691, whichever the Blob EAP is. Yeah, so I just wanted to bring it up and check with clients what they would prefer. I don't think it really matters which thing we do, but we should all do the same thing.
Andrew? Oh, guess that was a mistake.
Sorry. Yeah, Somnat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in Aragon what we implemented is that when we calculate the excess gas, actually for that you feed the parent block and you use the parameters of the fork of the parent block, but then when for other methods you use the current block. So it's a bit tricky. Yeah, because you might need, for the same calculation, you might have to use two blocks, but I believe it's actually it's consistent with EIP 4844.
Right, so at the fork block, we'll use the parent header still to calculate excess gas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
there was some other consideration from one other client team because I think it's just easier to write this way, and it really shouldn't matter either way. So, do we just want a clarification? And again, it's probably 7691, I believe is the number. I'm happy to go clarify in the EIP.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think it would be great to clarify it. Yeah.
Okay.
Roman?
Yeah, clarification is great. Again, what is the outcome? It's unclear. So for the fork block, do we use for the Prague fork block, do we use Cancun parameters or Prague parameters?
So how I see it, for when you actually calculate the excess gas, you use Cancun parameters for in that calculate excess blob gas. But for the rest of the things, you use Pectra parameters.
So that does not make much sense to me because in most API language I read, it said like once the fork is activated, use the new Prague parameters. And well, the way I understand it is the fork block is the fork activation, so we should use Prague parameters. But
right. But for excess blob gas, the parent is used, right? So, and the parent still belongs to the previous fork.
I mean, for I don't know, another example would be validating the gas limit increase or decrease. For that, the parent block is used as well. You know, but these are pure functions. I don't know. I don't want to bike shed too much because, like, I think this is insignificant. I just want us to agree on something.
Yeah. And I don't know, Mario, do you want to give context from the testing perspective?
Yeah, basically just to echo Raman, I think it feels to me that if we use Cancun parameters on the first block of Prague, it doesn't quite make sense. It feels like a one-off logic deviation to me. Also for testing, we should like we never pass like whether when we were filling a block in the test, we never pass whether this block is at the fork boundary. We always just pass Prague and that's it. So for this to work, we would have to pass, okay, this block is a fork boundary because EELS would have to know that it needs to use the Cancun parameters, which doesn't make sense. So yeah, basically just I agree with Roman. You just favor the use of the Prague parameters at the first Prague block.
Okay, and this is what the testing behavior does today already?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. I would then default to just clarifying the words in the EIP to match the behavior that we have in testing, if that's okay for everyone.
It works for me.
Okay. Great. So if we can, yeah, try to get this done as well before the Monday testing call, that would be ideal.
Yeah, I should be able to make a PR to the EIP today.
Nice. Anything else on this?
The light client is saying it will make the geth logic more complicated.
Oh, and Robin is saying that Geth already does this. Yeah, I assume some clients may have to change regardless of what we do. It should not be a major change. Assuming that's correct, I think we should, yeah, should just move forward with this.
Yeah, in the interest of speed, light client. Okay, he says he's okay with either way.
Okay, great. So let's copy the behavior from the tests to the EIP, get this merged in the next couple of days, and then yeah, if Geth or others need to update their code, they can do that. And Meryl, if you want to post maybe, oh yeah, you did post already the PR, the execution spec tests. Nice. Okay, anything else on this one? Then moving on. Okay, the other spec change was one for the BLS precompile, that there were updates to the multiplication cost of the G2. I'm not sure if the author of this PR is on the call right now.
I can talk about it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So like quick background is that like original BLS EIP spec put some like careful attention to the constants that are there, and there is explicitly a sentence confirming that. So the gas constant were picked in a way that they are divisible by 1000, and in the end, some formulas that are later used in the EIP, how to calculate the end gas costs for multiscalar multiplication. It's in this formula there's division, but it doesn't really matter what kind of division it is. By kind, I mean usually we use integer division, but it's mathematically also the same in this case. However, over time we changed the gas costs constants, and we didn't notice this detail. And in the end, now it matters. And also the order of computation in some formulas matters. So at least I can argue that the spec is kind of inconsistent with itself. And the easiest fix to the spec is this, what has been proposed by Radek, which just corrects the constant so it follows their previous assumptions. This is, however, not the easiest fix for the implementation because we need to update the tests. And I actually prefer to fix the spec rather than fixing implementations. I mean, yeah, I prefer to fix a spec and update the test, but I think there were some other opinions about it. And I also commented about these other options in the pull request, but that's more or less the story about it.
Thanks.
Sorry, so Kyle, I don't understand. So if everyone agrees to divide in the same place, we use the same formula using integer division, then that's the only change we would have to make.
Yeah, I mean it's one of the fixes. For me it's like the least preferable one. Because like this is why we noticed the issue is that we actually implemented it differently, and that's why we actually spotted the bug. It wasn't that by reviewing the AP, it was just by implementation difference. Secondly, there are some like annoying small things that coming up from this because at least on like some analysis level, you will still have fractional gas costs. Like for example, if you compute the cost of precompile for some number of points, and then you will compute what is actually the cost per single point, you will get fractional values. So if you do any analysis outside of pure implementation, you will need to handle this fractional cost somehow.
When you mean an analysis,
like,
is this like benchmarking?
Well, like plotting
chain?
or like doing, yeah, it's something outside of the consensus, right? So it's not like huge deal. So I agree that's like the lowest effort fix is to agree that the formula that most of the clients implemented is the way to go. But it's definitely not my preference. But if this is definitely the preference of all others, I think I will find that.
What is your preference to update these gas costs?
Yeah, that's the easiest, but we can also update the formula, but in some other way. So there are three options in my opinion, we can select from. Update the gas cost as in the pull request. Then this is like minimal spec update. The secondly, we define the division we mean is is just integer division, but the order of we can modify the formula that it suits the current implementations more or less, or we can modify it in a way that it actually also needs test update and implementation update. And we need to fix some like wording in some other parts of the spec. So I can see three options. Yeah, but one of them gives you no work on the clients and tests, and like more work on the spec.
And I don't have like an intuitive sense for this, but like, what's the difference to like an average user if the gas cost for this multiplication goes up 500 gas? Like, is this something that's called once, 10, 100 times in like transaction?
I think the difference is mostly, I think, aesthetical to my understanding, because we already lowered that by more than 2 times.
Okay.
So it was, now it's in the range of 23,000.
Right. So it's like, yeah.
So it's, I don't know how many percentage it is, but it's like one digit one. But we lowered that from around 40,000 to my, if I remember correctly. So I think it's not a big deal, but if someone really cares about that to be precisely, yeah. So I think the change is rather in the like rounding, and we just pick the different rounding factor.
And then alternatively, when we say like we would like require require specifying that everybody uses integer division, like what's the, where would we specify this? Basically, like how do we enforce this? My fear with that approach is we all agree on this call to do this, and we do this with the fork, but it's like not clear to me where and how we can have test conditions for the way in which this gets calculated.
No, I think it's relatively easy. We definitely can do that clearly in the specification, and the test already covered it somehow. But we can make sure that this is, yeah, because the test caught our like difference in implementation.
I see.
So tests are there already, and we can actually make sure that there's maybe specific tests that, but seems, yeah, if you run just like different examples of different multi-scalar multiplication cases with different number of points, this is already covered.
I see. And would any, if we did this, if we enforce using integer division, would any client team have to change anything aside from obviously EVM1, but like would any like mainnet client team have to change everything, or are they all passing those tests?
If you already passed Devnet 5 tests, I think you're fine. If you didn't try it, then you can find the same issue.
Yeah. In this case, if we can specify it in the spec clearly, and we already have test cases for it, I would lean toward just enforcing integer division. It feels a bit uglier than changing the gas costs, but also, yeah, if we already have this, and yeah, I'm not that keen to delay the fork over just, yeah, having another entire iteration cycle just over this. But anyone object to this? Okay, so let's have a couple of thumbs up in the chat. Let's verify the spec to do this. Powell, is this something you can do in the next couple of days?
I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
do
we'll,
it.
Oh, Reddick.
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
do
we'll
it.
handle that. Yes.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, if Epsilon can clarify the spec, ideally by Monday's session call as well. It shouldn't require anything on the client's end, but at least we will have clarity. Anything else on this topic? Good. Thank you very much. Last potential spec change for Pectra today. A bit of a bigger one. So there's HackMD that was created to make a case to allow for delegation introspection. Julian, do you want to give context on the proposal?
Yeah, GM everybody. So yeah, oh yeah, great. Thanks for dropping it, Tim. So a little bit of background. I think over the past couple of weeks, we've kind of talked about this idea of like code introspection and Xcode opcodes, having sparked a new discussion in terms of like the way that we build things on 7702. It kind of sparked this for us as well, because after building with and then without prefix plus delegate address, kind of realized it's actually a great feature that is very useful, wouldn't change the behavior of EOF contracts, but I realized it was a big sticking point. So we decided to take the time to break down like what does that even mean just by saying it may or may not be affected by EOF. Is it aligned by EOF? And kind of like breaking it all down in this doc. So I would say, the first maybe 70% is a lot of background, and then towards the end is an actual analysis on why we believe actually, allowing Xcode opcodes to act on the full EIP 7702 delegation designator for delegated EOAs instead of just the prefix is like the best way forward. And we hope that this final update is like kind of the very last thing that we would want to add to 7702, leading into Pectra. Dave is, one of the main authors and the protocol engineer behind this deep dive. So he's more than happy to add any additional comments, but I hope this is a good background in terms of like what we wanted to get across and hope to get done today.
Thank you. Yeah. Is Dave on as well? Any additional comments?
Yeah, I'm here. I think that hits it all pretty much. I would just say that there's some discussion on Discord about like, oh, should this make us reconsider EIP 7702 mutability or EOF code introspection behavior? And we don't like recommend either of those things. We'd say that basically just this change for Xcode behavior for 7702, it simply like would improve like safety for relayer schemes. It doesn't like completely warrant the need to change like mutability for 7702, or definitely not code introspection behavior for EOF.
Thanks, Daniel.
So as far as features for EOF, when something's added, it can't be removed. So probably where we're going to start with the EOF and introspection into the delegates is it's not going to be there because there's no code introspection in EOF. But because it's a thing that can be fixed by adding an opcode or making a new opcode, perhaps a ext code delegate, it's not like we're stuck there. So just the plan going forward on this for, initially for EOF, my prediction is we won't have introspection of the delegate in EOF code because it can be undone easier than adding it in and removing it later when we figure out we don't need it. We're really committed to trying, if you listen to the calls, there's a lot of places we're trying to get rid of code introspection, including how we're calculating hashes for EOF create. So we're really committed to make no code introspection be the default.
I think we're completely aligned with that vision. Like in the doc, it lines up or outlines how we think that the removal of code introspection is a good thing, and that we, hope that EOF can include some notion of delegation introspection in the future, but that it's not necessarily it needs to be included in the first version. Also that, yeah, kind of differentiating between code introspection and delegation introspection. Like imagine interactions between EOF contracts that have no external code introspection, but can only just check the delegation designator for EOAs. Then it would act, simply like an implementation identifier, which I think would be beneficial for EOF contracts, while like nowhere in that interaction would there be real code introspection. So I think, it'd be something to consider down the line, like you said. And yeah, I'm not, intimately like aware of the details for, if that would make certain assumptions about code introspection behavior breakdown. But I think we think that simple delegation introspection is like a far less complex like way to reason about interaction than full on code introspection.
I guess one question I would have is, to an extent, this is a big change. In clients, Ethereum JS seems to be like a pretty small change. Yeah, does any other team feel strongly in terms of either the work that this represents or just the general value of the feature? Okay, I guess no strong opinions. My sense is people probably have not had the time to like fully review this. I don't know how accurate this is. I just read the doc the first time this morning. Yeah, so I don't know, on one hand, I would like us to make a decision today about what to do, because if we are going to change this, we should do it as soon as possible, to not delay either like another DevNet or potentially moving to testnets. Yeah, on the other hand, I think we should make sure people properly review this. Yeah, and I don't know, maybe like a question for Julian and Dave is like, how problematic would it be to not have this change included?
I'm not sure if Dave wanted to answer that. I was gonna say, oh, go for it, Dave. I see you unmuted.
Yeah. So we outlined in the doc basically a front running attack that can be carried out against relayers in like relayer schemes that the EIP intends to like service. And so we were just pointing out that like to make interaction with delegated EOAs safer for relayers, this would be beneficial for that, while it wouldn't change any behavior for EOF contracts, and it also wouldn't change like safety for interactions with delegated EOAs, such as like self-sponsorship, where the submitter of the transaction can trust themselves. So this is really just about like safety for relayers with 7702.
Got it. And yeah, Justin from Bezu says he's unclear and would like to talk to some of the wallet devs. My sense is if we're not, if people need to review this more before making a decision, perhaps we can finalize this on Monday's testing call, unless people really want to move forward with this today. But I think maybe getting 2-3 days to review this over the weekend and tomorrow would help us make a big decision.
I mean, I think I'm pro this decision, and my only hesitation has been the interplay between this and EOF. But if people don't feel like this is creating some kind of precedent for how we'll deal with things in EOF, then I don't really see a specific issue with this. If they need to add a new opcode, is delegated opcode something along these lines? That's not a big problem for this change, and it will come with EOF.
Thanks. Dano?
So the opcode, I'm waiting to see on that to see if the market develops and if we need it. It can be added later. So I would think the initial EOF position would be to keep our existing code introspection. And if the market shows that we need this, the path to fix it is to add the opcode. So we have a way out. And I'm kind of waiting to see if we really need this. But again, this is another thing. If we put it in shortened now, we could never add it into legacy. So it's kind of a sticky wicket to be in. But as far as whichever way you go, EOF has a way out. It might not ship in Fusaka, it might ship in Amsterdam to get the full solution. But that'll give us time to see how the market reacts to this and if there's a need for delegation introspection.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm supportive of it. I don't really see something that is like Frangia said, this was sort of a toss-up between the two behaviors when we were making this decision. And the reason that we went with the 2-byte specifier is because it was more similar to how things behaved with respect to EOF. And now we're in a kind of a weird situation where only the external code reading operations are getting this EF01 prefix, where the code copy, code size are actually getting the executing code, the code that was delegated to. So I find the difference in behavior between these opcodes weird. So this could be an opportunity to just like unify all of that together in a better way.
And I guess there was, one comment in the chat by Justin about wanting to talk to some wallet devs. There's some responses that this has been talked about in the forums. So, yeah, I don't know, do people prefer to move forward with this now in order to have sort of a final spec, or do we want to wait a couple of days and make a decision on Monday? And if we do make the decision on Monday, like, are there specific people we'd like to bring in on the testing call or reach out to in the upcoming days?
Don't we already need a DevNet 6 for the Gmall stuff?
Potentially, yes.
I think that's enough time for me to, talk to the people that I'd like to talk to.
What we need DevNet 6?
So we have two small changes we agreed to. The changes, actually, like the Gmall, we would not need the DevNet because this is the current behavior that clients do. But then yeah, we have already these two pretty minor changes around like the base fee update fraction and the blob base fee at the fork boundary. I don't know if we want to set up an entire new DevNet just to test these two relatively minor fixes. Assuming we did, then yes, we should include the 7702 change. And then if, I don't know if the 7702 change is the thing that, goes from it not requiring to requiring a DevNet.
Yeah, just small comment about block-based fee fraction. I don't think it will require the DevNet because we can just update EL clients with the new configuration and that's it. I think we can coordinate it without DevNet.
Okay, so this 7702 change then would be the one, I don't know, would we actually want an entire new DevNet for this, or would we be comfortable having obviously static tests and then potentially going straight to test nets with this change that has not been deployed on the DevNet?
So that I'd planned a shadow fork anyway, likely host key and potentially mainnet as well. So if we want, we could just avoid a DevNet life cycle and just integrate the change with the shadow fork. That would still give us, let's say, a week-ish, basically until enough time for everyone to pass hype tests before we spin up the shadow fork. And then ideally, we've made this decision by then and we either include it in the shadow fork or not.
Okay. Okay, so I think what I would do in this case then is push this decision. Oh, like trying to say, we can put this in DevNet 5, meaning like we'd update the client versions and.
I mean, I don't know how far along people are. I think, we're kind of at the bleeding edge of DevNet 5, I suppose. And it feels like a very easy thing for us to update. I mean, we are already determining if the thing is a 7702 delegating account, and adding in the address to the designated that we return is it's extremely simple.
Okay, so clearly, regardless of whether we put it in DevNet 5 or if we just test it in the shadow fork, there's a path to testing this without requiring an entire new DevNet iteration cycle just for it. My proposal would then be to give people a couple days to review this and make a final call on Monday's testing call. And if there's anyone we need to speak to or we want feedback from, either try to do this today or tomorrow or have them come on the testing call. Does that seem reasonable? And then, yes, actually, the other point is having a PR to the EIP. If we could get this today, I think that would help. Yeah, that would help us reason about the change. But yes, we should not launch an entire new DevNet cycle just for this. And then if it is, if we do move forward with it, then it should be a pretty simple change. We can implement it after Monday.
And in case someone can't make the testing call and has objections/support, then please at least leave a message on ETH so that we can read it out at the testing call. Ideally, we'd want support from every year.
And yeah, one last comment I'll highlight from the chat is that we had this behavior in 7702 before, and we are now bringing it back. So yes, it's something that clients have implemented in the past. Anything else on this proposal? Oh, sorry. Okay, there's other comments in the chat now saying it was a different behavior that was implemented before. So okay, so then I will close by saying this emphasizes the need for a clear PR proposing the changes. If we can get this today, review it on Friday, and then discuss this on Monday's calls. That would be ideal. And I believe this was the last spec change proposal for Pectra. So summarize, we have the 7623 change that was merged already, then these two changes around the blob. So one around the base fee updates, one around the fork boundary. For 2537, we agreed we're not going to make the gas cost change. We're just going to clarify the EIP with regards to what division method to use, and then make this final decision about 7702 on Monday's call once we have a PR up to properly review. Anything else on the specs? If not, yeah, wanted to also highlight the audits we've done for the system contracts in Pectra. I believe Frederick is on the call. I can give a quick update on this.
Yeah, so in September, as some of you might know, we did a request for proposal for basically bytecode audit of the system contracts in Pectra. We had quite a lot of proposals. I don't recall the exact number, but maybe 15, something like that. And basically, we moved forward with a handful of these entities. These have now been completed by these firms. So we now have all the reports available for them. So in the call in 2 weeks from now, I would propose that we invite them to present the findings that they have had in their audits, basically.
Thanks. And I guess just to be clear, all of the changes and suggestions from the audits have already been implemented in their contracts, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we did like this. We can talk more about this, I guess, in the follow-up call. But we did this type of rolling audit where we had the first one do it, then we implemented a lot of the proposals, then we had a second one to do it, and basically rolled the audits like that to be able to cover as much as possible. But yeah, they've been implemented, and there were no major findings. Basically.
Nice. Yeah, I think that seems reasonable to have a discussion about it and answer any questions in the next call. I think if we can have sort of the actual reports, ideally a week or so in advance so that people can review them and raise any questions ahead of time, that would be great. Yeah, we can do a deeper dive on the next ACDE.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll add them to a repository. I can make sure that they are distributed that way, and yeah, I will post where to find the audit docs.
Sweet. Any questions, comments on the audits? Okay. Yeah, thanks, Frederick. Next up, yes, I wanted to follow up again on started to think about testnet releases and scheduling. So we have Devnet 5 up right now. I expect we'll need to do a bit of work on this, and we have some like final spec changes to consider. I guess my first question would be, how are clients generally feeling about moving to testnets? Do people feel like we want to start getting this done in, say, the next couple of weeks? Are there things that teams feel they need a bit longer to work on or to finalize? And I guess related to this, do we want to potentially fork both testnets using the same client releases, or do people prefer to have two different client releases and potentially a longer break between the two testnets? Yeah, how are people feeling about moving this testnets? And if there's no strong opinions, maybe my starting proposal would be something like we should set testnet fork blocks on the next ACDE in 2 weeks. Expect client releases in the week after that, so the week of February 3rd, and potentially have a first testnet fork on the week of February 12th. Depending on how we do releases, we could have the second testnet fork either the week after or 2 weeks after, which would be week of the 17th or week of the 24th of February. Is that a schedule people feel is reasonable? Okay, so no objections. So I guess if there are no objections, what I would do is, yeah, I think on the next, either next week on the consensus layer call, or at the latest on the week after that, we should, yeah, start looking at dates. Perry has a questions about whether teams have started merging changes to their release branches. Seems like Besu has. Oh, yeah, getting a bunch of thumbs up. Besu, Teku, never mind. Breath. Okay, great. So it seems like things are generally moving forward well. So what I can do is I'll propose some potential dates and fork blocks on next week's ACDC, and we can take it from there. But we'll roughly target something like the last week, the early February, basically, for the first testnets forking, which would give client teams like 2 weeks or so to get a release out. And it seems like there's no objections to this. Sweet. And then related to this, Sophia wanted to bring up something around setting the gas limits as we put these releases out for testnets. Sophia, do you want to give some context on the gas limit?
Yeah, so for context, we're all aware that recently there's a push by validators to increase the gas limit to 60 million, in response to which some here found what is essentially an edge case, preventing us from doing that immediately. I don't think this will be a one-time thing. We would like to more or less continually increase the gas limit over the next several hard forks, and there are currently several threads of work that people are doing to enable this. But that also means that we'll need to know what increases are safe well ahead of time and foresee problems with them. So I'd like to suggest that the way to do this would be to have Holsky always have a higher gas limit than mainnet. And unless there are any objections to this, and then I would ask client teams now to set the default limit on Holsky to 36 million, and then when it forks to Pectra, go to 60 million, and we can proceed from there.
Any objections to this? Okay. Yeah, so we don't quite have a way to like spec this, but I think as people start to work on their testnet releases, we should make sure that we include these changes. Oh, and okay, there's a comment saying Besu already has this. Teku as well, so great. Prism as well. So yeah, so the testnet, Prism, never mind. So great. So testnet releases can go with 36, and then when we have a mainnet release, we can bump the defaults for the testnets to 60 million as well. And then there's a question by POTUS in the chat about the testnet forking schedule around whether we have enough validators in Holsky to actually make it happen before mainnet. Is there risk here that like Holsky doesn't finalize or something for long enough before mainnet? Perry says we have enough validators under our control. Okay, we should be good for whole sleep. Okay, anything else on Testnet schedules or gas limits? Okay, sweet. Okay, next up on the call, different topic. Felix had a proposal around RPC standardization. I don't know if he's on the call. I think so.
Yeah.
Felix, you want to give context on this?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, I posted this document a couple days ago just to clarify. What I posted the document mostly so that people who aren't super familiar with this whole thing can read a bit more. But ultimately, what I want to discuss on here isn't so much the document, but some specific things that we should probably do now to move this process a bit forward. So first of all, this kind of started because I asked Perry to include the RPC compatibility test as part of the Hive run for the Devnet. And the reason why I did this is because we have this cycle, for this fork cycle, we were actually pretty quick with adding the RPC compatibility tests for Prague. So there are some Prague tests already in there, and we are adding more right now. And so it's actually very interesting. Basically, we can use these tests to check if the clients implemented the more optional parts of the fork correctly. Like, for example, if they have support for the new 7702 delegations in ETH call and things like that. And this is something we've never done before. But unfortunately, this testing doesn't really work because, the clients still have issues just, with the basic test setup. And so this is why I started this effort. So I feel like, I've been working on RPC standardization for a long time. And it's just very frustrating because there's very little feedback from the client implementers. And I never really know if they find these tests actually useful or if there's any interest to move the spec forward. And then there are some open questions in general, just like how are we going to be handling updates to the spec and what should be the scope of the spec and all of these things. So on the specific question that I wanted to ask is just more generally, can we get some more support on trying to pass these tests? And should we have like a dedicated breakout call related to these things? Like maybe that could be a good start here.
Yeah, hey, this is Justin from Basu. We're very interested in improving the RPC specifications as well as potentially, a lot of the things that were discussed in Discord I found very productive, and we have a lot of interest in this. So if the first steps in doing that is to make the testing a little bit more of a gate to moving forward, I think we're all for that.
So we at Nethermind are also interested, and we are actually checking those tests. I know that we are not passing all of them, but sometimes there are like weird issues between, for example, GEF and Nethermind, and I think we just need to discuss it more together.
Yeah. So there is a JSON RPC channel in the Discord where we generally discuss it. I've brought up some of the things before. So mostly there are two classes of issues. So that some clients do not pass a test because they cannot load the test chain or because they have some other issue with it that prevents them from even running the test. This is currently the case for Aragon and Bisu. And Aragon has been broken on these tests, like at least in the runner that we use for more than a year. So I have actually no idea what's the status of Aragon and related. I just gave up trying to make it work. other issue is that once the tests are actually running, we see that there are some minor details in all kinds of places. And I've tried to elaborate a bit on the document, like kind of the specific kinds of things that happen on there. And we do have to come to an agreement. And generally, I think we do have to come to an agreement of like what's in scope, for example, specifically for the core devs to decide on even, because ultimately what the RPC interface is implemented by so many people in so many different contexts that it feels weird to just only have this be like a core dev thing where we make these decisions. However, there's a subset of the API which it's the subset that's currently in the specification. That thing I do think the Ethereum core devs have some authority over, and we need to figure out like, is this it, or do we want to expand this set of functionality, or yeah, how should we handle these kinds of things? And it's more like a process question. I just want to know like, where is the forum where we can come up with a decision? ACD was used as a forum in the past, but it's just kind of weird, and so yeah, I just don't really know. Like,
one question I would have for you, what are the other people you think or projects we need to include in these discussions? Like, is it like, infrastructure providers basically, or like L2s that it's more about the users of this than like the forks of the clients on, say, L2s?
I mean, yeah, so it's the L2,
questions?
it's the wallets. The wallets also provide this API. It's the infrastructure providers. Basically, everyone kind of
okay, got it.
Is somehow involved with this. And I mean, we cannot define everything for everyone. I mean, and for even now, it's not even clear if the wallets should be included in this process, or like if they should have their own process, which they don't. It's just this is a very organic thing. Like the RPC is one of these things that is just like an inherently very organic thing, because it just grew out of everyone trying to kind of support the same thing. And with the standardization, we are sort of like post facto trying to figure out like what can even be standardized. So that's like this. That is why it's so messy, is because there wasn't really a spec for the longest time, and now we're basically retroactively trying to create one and trying to align everyone as best we can. But I mean, a lot of these actors will just won't even be looking at the spec.
Got it. Roman, you've had your hand up for a while.
Yep. So very much in favor of this effort. My only request would be if standard in this case would be considered the minimal subset of functionality that every client should provide, but the clients are free to extend their method, their responses with any fields they want. And so basically changing the assertion equality test to be more relaxed regarding additional fields.
Yeah, this now goes a bit into the detail. I also don't really know how much time we honestly have on here. So I don't want to go too much into the whole detail, but this is actually kind of a good point. So the thing is that at the moment we have the situation that all of the clients have various extensions to the spec. And I've tried to highlight it a little bit in the document. One way out of the situation would be to just freeze the extensions at their current state, make all of these a part of the spec as they are right now, and then basically we would be in agreement on the current state. And then in the future, we would have to come up with some other process where the clients can add extensions if they want to. I think their current method is not super sustainable, with like everyone just sort of like adding the extensions when they feel like it, because it means we will never reach this point where the standard stuff is supported. Like we can never fully agree on the API in the current state. And that's why, yeah, I kind of put in this request that it would be good if, actually this is something we always kind of wanted, is like that clients would somehow push back a bit against users who want to put in these extensions, and just literally say that like, okay, there are certain extensions you can make, but when it comes to certain other extensions, it requires a much more extensive governance process. And yeah, basically, I don't know. I know you don't necessarily agree with this, but you know, from the perspective of standardization, it really hurts things when basically it's all like a moving target.
Okay, I think there's a rough consensus in the chat that we should have a breakout on this, and maybe start with a call with just client teams, and then potentially have a follow-up call where we kind of open it up to more people. And Justin says he's happy to herd the cats on this and try to find the time. So let's maybe have a poll in the JSON RPC to find the best time and try to set up a call in the next week or two to go into more details. Justin, are you okay running with this?
You got it.
Thank you. Anything else? Anything else to discuss on this before we wrap up? Okay. Yeah, so thanks a lot, Felix, for the write-up and bringing this up. And we'll follow up in the JSON RPC channel. Next up, Kev had a comment around finalizing requirements around hardware limits and potentially opening up the discussion about bandwidth. Kev, do you want to share a bit more here?
Yeah. Well, can you hear me? Hello?
Yep.
We've been collecting feedback on the hardware requirements stock for a while now, and it seems like we can start calling for some sort of finalization on there. And I just wanted to alert everybody, just in case people haven't looked at it. People have like strong opinions that they want to still put across. Feel free to like put it in the Discord or on the HackMD document so that we can see. Ideally, we start finalization on the next ACD. So if you have time to look at it between then and now, if you haven't already, that would be great. Should we make it? Yeah, the question on making it into an informational EIP, I would ask the EIP maintainers. But yeah, Tim, do you want to?
Yeah, so I think the one advantage of something like this is then it's easy to reference and people are aware of it, and it's kind of part of the set of things to reference. The one downside maybe is that once we have an EIP final, we don't like to update it. So to the extent that we expect these hardware requirements to change, it means we would probably just have another informational EIP. Say in 2 years, we revisit this and things have changed. Then we would just create some new EIP that says it supersedes the previous one. But yeah, I do think having it live somewhere a bit more permanent than like a HackMD document or a ETH research blog post would be good. Yeah, Nico?
Yeah, we could keep the EIP under the living status and having like an informational one that is living.
Yeah, that's true. We can do that as well, but
so we don't have to open. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no strong opinions on sort of where it lives, or so. Yeah, we can probably discuss that offline if like the EIP maintainers don't have any strong preference towards.
Yeah, I think we can do this, and that's kind of a good way to move this towards like a more finalized state. And at some point, we can literally have it in last call as an EIP. And then you mentioned bandwidth as well. So would the idea here to also have like a similar doc for bandwidth requirements and kind of go through a similar process?
Yeah, so there is a doc for bandwidth. I kind of wanted to push towards the TLDR of it to see where the dissenting opinions are first, just because it's a bit more controversial. Possibly we could just put the bandwidth requirements inside of the same EIP. If it's not too controversial, and we can sort of finalize it before along with the hardware requirements. But I have no strong opinions on whether we have one or two either.
What are the controversial? Do you have the link to the bandwidth one? What do you feel are the controversial bits?
Yeah, so I can, I need to modify it a bit more, but I put it inside of the GitHub issue. Essentially, I want to start a discussion on going for 25 download, 25 upload, given we have Fossil and you're using MEV-Boost, and 50 download, 50 upload, given we have Fossil, but you want to self-build. Any voters?
I think I was one of the one dissenting on this document. I think Ethereum today doesn't have a way of differentiating nodes from proposal and validating nodes from just full nodes. And I think this documents were based mostly for validators that have hardware that is over-determined in general. I think unless we have a way of differentiating the duties of validating nodes and non-validating nodes, we should really aim to have hardware requirements for full nodes that are typically required to have less hardware and less bandwidth than validating nodes.
Right. Yes, I think I replied in the GitHub Discord with that. Since you're a full node, you're not as latency sensitive, so you can have less requirements than a validating node, or in particular, someone who's trying to do local block building and a testing. I think what I said was that we should ideally have a document for full nodes as well, even if most of the stuff are sort of the same right now, like storage would still be the same, for example. Your hands are still up, Protus. Did you want to say something?
Oh, apologies. No, that was my only comment, that I think it's just hard to differentiate. As you say, storage is the same. But most of the things, everything is the same except CPU time and upload link when you're proposing. Everything else is essentially the same.
Right. Right. I think it'd be good if when we make protocol upgrades, we sort of have this distinction, which is what I think two documents would sort of make very explicit. If we make a protocol upgrade that pushes up full nodes, it should become quite obvious.
I think the
hopefully.
point is that if the document that says for validating nodes you need to have this bandwidth or this storage, then you cannot have a document that says for full nodes you can have less storage. So since the bottleneck for storage is the full node, I think we should focus on the full nodes first, establish that number that is the smallest number, and then we can talk about validators that are anyways going to be over-determined. So I think we should have started with the full nodes before the validating nodes, because the full nodes require less.
Right. I mean, I don't think it matters, because we can say if you're a full node and you want to keep up with the chain just as a validator node, then you'll need to have the minimum requirements just like a validator. But if you sort of want to be one slot behind, for example, then you can have less than, let's say, 25 megabits per second. The storage, I do agree, the storage would still be the same over both. But yeah, I don't think it matters which one we started with.
Sure. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. It's just that the optics of this is you're going to present an EIP, which is for requirements for validators. No one would disagree, because validators, I mean, all of these requirements for validators are reasonable. But the problem is that then later, those requirements that are reasonable for validators might not be reasonable for full nodes. And there's no way back from that, because once you require something for validators, for storage, for example, then full nodes will require the same. So I think it's more reasonable to start with full nodes that require less, and then you can require more for validators, and then becoming a no-op.
So what I would propose here is we have a single document for hardware bandwidth that's an informational EIP, and then you have two columns, one that's for validators, one that's for full nodes, or two sections or whatever. I agree these requirements should be different, and they might evolve differently over time. And I think even if you zoom way out into the future, we have these ideas around a tester proposer separations or whatever. So you could imagine having a third column. It's like full node, a tester node, proposer node, whatever. So I would move towards having like a canonical reference document. and then try to just have different categories as part of that. And our starting ones are bandwidth, hardware, full node, validator node. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I would say it's probably easier to have, well, maybe I need to think about it, but it seems easier to have separate documents, but then have one EIP that sort of merges them together.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like we can do the discussion like independently, but I think like once we have some consensus on these things, they should all come together in like a single EIP.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess, does anyone have a dissenting opinion on the bandwidth recommendations? I guess the rationale behind it is that once we have fossil, local block building is not as important for censorship resistance. So if you do want to go down the local block building route, you will need to have sort of sufficient bandwidth for it. Right, that's true. Fossil doesn't currently include blobs.
Is there I forget if we created a channel to discuss this in the R&D Discord, or where, if not, where were we discussing this?
We had I think the general ACD channel initially.
Okay, got it. Does it make sense to also have a separate channel to discuss this? Because I expect we'll come back to the topic over time.
Yeah, I think it'd be useful. Yeah, just a bit surprised no one has any dissenting.
Maybe once we post the doc in a channel, the dissenters will come out. So, okay, perfect. So let's do this. I'll create the channel after the call, and then Kev, you can draft the docs based on your current specs, and we can take it from there.
All right, thanks.
Anything else on the node requirements? Okay, if not, we have one last quick announcement around EIP editing. I believe there's an EIP editor workshop tomorrow. Sam, do you want to give context on it?
Sure. How's my audio?
It's good.
Okay, good. I never know with Zoom. Yeah, so we're doing a EIP editing like workshop tomorrow. It's for anybody who's interested in becoming an EIP editor or an EIP reviewer. One comes with governance responsibilities and the other one doesn't. Just pulling up the time here, but my computer seems to have died a little bit. Yeah, so that'll be tomorrow at 1600 UTC. We're going to go through how an EIP goes through the workflow. We're going to talk about the types and categories of EIPs, and then I'm going to do a few live EIP editing so people can ask questions and just kind of see how that works. And then we'll have some questions if anybody wants to ask anything. So yeah, coming out tomorrow, 4 p.m. UTC. Looking forward to seeing you all there.
Thank you. And yeah, I'll add, this is something where current EIP editors have a lot on their plates. It would be amazing if we could eventually move to a world where this is spread out much more evenly. My dream is something like every client team ends up with an EIP editor, and others obviously can participate as well, but going from a spot where we only have 2 or 3 people actively doing this to where we have 5 to 10, I think would help improve the just basic operations of the EIP process, and then 2, give us more bandwidth to potentially evolve it in a way that's more useful to everyone. So if you've been curious about EIP or intimidated by them, please join tomorrow's workshop. I think, it'll be a good starting point to bring in more people. And there was a comment in the chat about whether it'll be recorded. Yes, it will. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Anything else people wanted to bring up before we wrap up today? Okay. If not, then yes, there are a couple PRs to be opened and reviewed before Monday's call. I'll put a summary in the Discord, but please keep an eye out for those. And I will see everyone next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.